Welcome everyone to a triumphant return of the Jank Yard after our winter hiatus, brief hiatus. It's more of a solstice break, I'd say. Anyway, we're back and better than ever, or at least hearer than we have been in the last couple weeks. I'm Schmendrix, your host for this evening, and with me is Killer Cactus, fresh off of a steamy hot tub sesh.
Yes, sir. Nothing like steamy hot tub sessions and Russian submarines, baby.
Oh, also an Axis and Allies duel that went on for 5 hours, which is, I think, a short game of Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
And also joining us is the Treatment, who is braving the short days of the Canadian North.
Hey, everyone. It's actually pretty good here. It's miserable. It's just raining and no snow.
It's pretty good. No, it's miserable.
Well, it's not wintry. It doesn't feel like Christmas or anything. It's just rain and warm weather. I don't like it.
Yeah, very similar where I'm at too, and I agree. Not very Christmassy at all.
We've had some snow here in Colorado, and both where I'm at in Denver and also up in the mountains. So I'm going to take my twin 5-year-olds to their very first ski lesson tomorrow, which is going to be exciting, to say the least. But I am just looking forward. My wife was working this week. I've had off, so I've been watching them on my own for the last 3 days, and the idea of just like
pushing them down a hill is exciting.
5 uninterrupted hours where the ski teacher is taking care of them sounds like heaven on earth. So let's go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm curious how the hills here, whether they're even operating, because it's too warm and there's no snow. So I don't you couldn't even make snow to keep up with the weather. I don't know how they're doing. Yeah,
it's brutal.
Global warming, man.
Tell us about this Russian submarine killer. What happened? Why did you end up reliving the hunt for Red October for 5 hours?
Yeah,
at a
well,
board game?
We had my buddy and I played my first game of Axis and Allies. My buddy and I against two 10-year-olds. Us as the Axis powers and them as the Allies. And after a very, very swift and glorious conquest of the Soviet Union, we realized that the German Navy had been completely depleted, and the only the only Russian unit left on the board was a submarine that was controlling our port in Germany, which prevented us from rebuilding the German Navy at all. So it then took another few hours to figure out how to get a transport from a port captured in Turkey by the Japanese through the Mediterranean Sea, around the coast of Spain and Portugal, and up into Great Britain through their ragtag remaining naval defenses to conquer Great Britain, because the Americans weren't having it. They would not let me in Japan anywhere close to their border, and it but yeah, that and this 10-year-old kid, my buddy's son, knew exactly what he's doing too. He's got his one, we were joking at him, oh hey, it's Russia's turn. Do you want to do something? And he goes, with his one submarine, that's it. He goes, yeah, I'm gonna move my submarine right here onto this port, so you can't make boats. And his dad just looked at him. we looked at each other for a while, and we went, oh crap, we can't make any boats. This is bad. Yeah, it took a long time, but we eventually did send the dirty Allies back to their hovels and took over the world. But
so, do you feel really good that you and your adult friend playing as the evil Axis powers conquered the Allies against some 10-year-olds?
No, I don't. I feel fairly terrible about it, especially his history lessons to 10-year-olds aside. I felt very outsmarted by a couple of kids. Neither, my son never played either before, right? And my buddy's like, I really thought we were just gonna get in there and kill them. And he said he even went, like, he was going easy early on, like didn't want to just completely wipe his son off the map because he wanted the game to last longer, and then it ended up lasting 5.5 hours.
There you go.
So
careful what you wish for.
That's right. Russian submarines, man. You can make sure you take them all out. One of them will spend 3.5 hours of your life without blinking.
I have a colleague who's played, like, I don't know, 100 games of Axis and Allies against her brother, I think, primarily, and I'm really curious to know what she makes of that. I think they've explored, like, the entire solution space of Axis and Allies a few times over at this point. I don't think I've ever actually played a game all the way through.
We were playing with the simplified rule set, so we didn't have the technological advancements that you can get when you play with the complicated stuff, and that may have allowed us to find a different way to destroy a submarine. I don't know, but I know that stupid thing sat there literally the whole game and was... I mean, honestly, I told my buddy's wife afterwards, I was like, your son's a genius. Like, he literally stopped our entire takeover of Great Britain with one submarine. And I think, kudos for that. But, yeah, it's really difficult to play a 5.5 hour game with 10-year-olds who, have the attention span of 10-year-olds.
Yeah, for sure.
But it had a lot of fun. I had a lot more fun than I thought I would, honestly, playing a game like that. Usually
it's like 30 10-minute games.
Yeah, right.
That you have to keep reminding them to come back to.
Yes, yeah. And it's, we're sitting there plotting, right, in between turns. We're talking about everything we're going to do, and they're not even at the table, right? Like, they're not even on the same floor as us, right? They're downstairs.
Yeah, they've played 3 rounds of Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
While you guys were playing.
And then it's like, we figure out everything we're going to do. Like, hey, guys, it's your turn. And he comes up and he goes, I'm just going to move my submarine here, and you guys are screwed for the rest of the game. And it's like, wow, this just makes me feel like a really dumb person, but we had a lot of fun, so that's cool.
Treatment, how you doing? It's been quiet around the server. We've missed our resident shit stirrer.
I mean, I don't know that that's true, or
it's
that
true
people
for
have
me.
Noticed. But yeah,
I noticed.
Yeah,
I don't know. For more or less 3 weeks, I guess, roughly, I've just been very frustrated and bitter, and so I basically stopped all my involvement in the community. And I still played a couple PL games more out of stubborn obligation than actual enjoyment. And then after I played Matt Bowers like 2 weeks ago, I just dropped out of every league and didn't bother signing up for any of the new tournaments or anything. And I don't know. I'm not sure when I guess probably I will, but I'm not sure when I'm going to join back into anything.
Well, it's a weird way to announce that we're looking for a new third host. It's going to be real hard to make this podcast without you.
No, I'll still do this. It's just I've been very frustrated, I guess. And I don't know, demoralized? A lot of things piled up sort of at once, which is weird because any individual thing just makes me sound like a mope. But between like work and whatever, I was leading up to Christmas. Like, I just did not want to do Christmas. I just wanted to skip the holidays and go to January and whatever. It was just, I was very irritable with everything. And definitely Ash has contributed to that. So yeah, but the holidays were more or less, refueling, various dramas aside. And, but yeah, now that it's been so long since I've been playing or anything, I don't know if I'm ready to get back yet. But today was the first day I've really like caught up on any sort of conversations or anything. Like I turned off all notifications other than direct pings. And so today was the first day I was like scrolling through a lot of conversations that were going on. So it's interesting.
Well, we probably haven't helped with, we've made these podcasts difficult to schedule. I know I have.
Yeah, I was frustrated with that too. But yeah, we're doing this now. We're back, which is nice. And well, January's a new year, so it's always good. Turn a new leaf.
Hopefully have a new set. I mean, look, I don't know. I've come to just accept that like my interest in games like this is going to wax and wane. Like for me, it's almost always Ashes. It's sort of like Ashes, Marvel Champions, and then kind of a rotating cast of like other games that I play primarily solo that I kind of go through cycles of interest in, which I think is healthy. Like I don't when I was first falling in love with Ashes in 2020, there were weeks where it was like the only game I was thinking about. Got pretty obsessive. And you just can't sustain that level of interest, like now I'm like married to Ashes. Wait, hold on. I just talked about how I like to rotate games, which is a weird metaphor with marriage, but in any case, like...
And now you're married and uninterested.
Passion has subsided. Now I'm married and I have these two side pieces. No, that's not what I mean. I just, you're not going to be able to sustain the level of interest, and I think it's important to be able to take a break from the game, especially a game that I know that you aspire to play at a really high level. It's really hard to sustain that. It's good to have like, an off season where you're focused on training and maybe not competing, or just rest and recovery.
Yeah, probably rest and recovery. It's not like I have any other games. I always think I'm going to get into whatever Netrunner or something, but ultimately, no, not time or dedication to play to the same level or to be involved like in the community to the same level.
The other thing that I find brings me back to the game when I am getting tired of it is playing decks that other people have made for me, which is why I've really enjoyed like the Trick or Treat deck where I played Killers, and now Secret Santa's in its first week and matches are rolling in. Treatment, you're not participating. Killer, how are you finding it so far?
I just had my first game today, which was completely hilarious because I didn't think it was a Secret Santa game at all.
It was very secret. It was a double Secret Santa game. You didn't even know.
I thought I was playing a knockout tournament game, and it's outstanding because I just said, you know what? I'd played my Secret Santa deck in Phoenix League this week because I wanted some practice with it, and I liked it, and then I was like, I'm just going to play it in the knockout tournament because it's similar to a deck that I had been playing a little bit before. I really haven't played anyone except I've only played 2 Phoenixborn for the last month. I haven't done a whole lot of experimenting. I've just been on like these 2 decks, and my Secret Santa deck is one of those Phoenixborn. It's just a little different. So I said, I'll just play this in knockout too. So I'll play it today, and then I win my game. I reported in knockout, and dubious archivist who I played against was like, no, this was Secret Santa. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a really good thing I played my Secret Santa deck there.
That would have been awkward.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I played last year. I think I might have just built a deck for it. No, I take that back. I did play. But I remember last year not liking the deck I got, and I didn't do well in the event, and then I realized after that I was very stubborn with my play style just in general. Like, I saw this list that somebody gave me, and it wasn't like something I would do. So I didn't play it like the deck was built to be played. I played it like I just kind of ignored their plan and tried to make my own with that list, and it did not go well. So this time I've kind of embraced it, and it's, again, not something I would normally do with this type of deck. I mean, I guess I can we can probably talk about it, right? Like what the deck is.
I don't know. I don't really know.
I don't know.
Sure, why not?
I don't know what the etiquette is, but this will be out for a while anyway.
We're loose cannons. Come on, let's.
I mean, you're only spoiling it for yourself.
Yeah. So I have an Aerodel that's nature, time, and illusion, and it's not a way. It's mostly nature time. There's only one illusion die, just for a couple splash things, and it has like Frost Frog Double Down stuff in it, and it has a Realm Walker, and it's got it has an option for Gates Open. Doesn't have Rejuvenate. It has a bunch of stuff that I normally wouldn't do with Aerodel. But I've played 2 games now with it, and both have been very strong wins, and with 2 different opens, like very different opens, that were kind of tailored to what I thought I was going to face, and deck just runs really smooth, and it's kind of eye-opening. I build so many decks, and I at least have a reputation for trying so many different things, and it's nice to really for the first time, because like I said last year when I played in this, I didn't really embrace the plan that my deck builder was trying to give me. It's nice to have something that's kind of out of left field for me, but I'm finding very strong and very interesting to play. So I'm kind of hyped up about it.
That's cool. I mean, that's the promise, I think, of Secret Santa. I think I'm where you were last year. Maybe not quite as negative. And I'd love advice about this. Treatment gave me some today, so maybe we can recap that. But I've got I asked for Lulu. I've got a Lulu deck. And part of the reason I asked for Lulu is I went through a phase where I really, really liked Lulu. I'm slightly bitter in that, like, I was really trying to figure out how to make Focused Mirror Spirits in Lulu work before Carl and Brian decided Focused Mirror Spirits was really cool, and I had given up by that point. And so, like, I've largely not touched Lulu since then. This was, early 2023 maybe, or really 2022. And she's got her new signature card, so I was hoping to get a cool Lulu deck to really explore her new signature from someone hopefully who explored it more, since I've been too lazy or burned. The deck I got, it's interesting. Again, like you said, it's definitely not the kind of thing I would build, and that's largely because I've played one game with it. I lost. It was close-ish, grindy, but ultimately got overwhelmed by a Rin deck, where I just couldn't quite turn the corner against all the beef that it was putting on the field, and Chant of Transfusion. But the thing that it caused me to reflect on was this is like a pure swing deck. Like, if you want to win with this deck, you need, 2 swings in quick succession, which is what, Stamina Burst is intended, Lulu's new signature is intended to enable. That's just not a kind of deck I play. I don't mind. I've really come around to playing a lot of grindy, slow, battlefield-focused trade decks, but they are almost always enabling a secondary win con. So I've been playing a bunch of Jessa, or had been playing a bunch of Jessa, and then Fred took the Jessa deck I was playing and won the Trick or Treat tournament with it. And then we've played the Saria, we played the Herald Mill. So this idea of like just trying to grind out a pure swing win with very little reach, it's got, I think, 1 Molten Gold and no mill, is really unfamiliar to me. So I'm really struggling to figure out just like how to win a swing match. And so yeah, I don't know, Treatment, if you want to give me a pep talk / how you approach that.
So yeah, you already talked about with Stamina Burst wanting to get the double tap. And so you have to think about each round building, at least once you have it in hand, building to that end, which I think in my book, one of the reasons why, say, like Brian and Carl, they're the finals was a matchup of basically just 2 swing decks. Like I don't have the list in front of me, but as far as I know, they had virtually zero reach. They had no mill. Maybe they had 1 burn card each, and they had also very minimal, if any, like I think they had 1 Phoenix Attendant each. So it's not really even a lot of heal. So it was all about trading, and a lot of it is trading down, I think, especially what like Brian is really good at, because I think, well, you can tell me if you have like bears in your deck, but trading down with bears is something that he does a lot. And it's about building that.
Define trading down.
Well, I guess like trading down in the sense of like he will take out a 1/1 with a bear rather than waiting to take out something of equal value. Maybe that's not trading down, but like he will do whatever, like he will use his resources on weaker stuff just so that it both forces the opponent to have to spend more resources into something that's then already exhausted and already done something. And if they don't, then he gets to keep that round over round value. And if they ignore it, or even while they try and take it down, he can then continue, putting other things on the board and continuing that plan. And so you have to do that so that once you have some sort of critical mass, and I don't know how many units that is, could be 3, could be 4 or 5, that's when you want to turn on the switch of like, okay, here's an all-out swing, stamina burst, all-out swing again at the top of the round and get your big hit in. And that is a long-term game plan. So if you have heal, that contributes to it. Obviously, if you have, I would imagine you have some sort of, I don't know how much you want to spoil because you've shared it with me, but defensive units, that type of thing. And so you just have to. It's almost like a mill mindset, where you're really trying to let them waste resources into you, and then you're waiting for that counter strike moment.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that trips me up is like with just a burn or a mill deck. Speaks to how, I'd say lazy, but I mean, just baseline Ashes takes enough work. I'm not going to say lazy, but it's like all I'm doing there is like, I don't kind of have to visualize or engineer the ending of the game. Like the deck is doing it, right? Like the deck with Jessa, you do have to decide when you start screaming, but that's pretty obvious. It's basically like, as soon as you start getting up on dice on board and that feels stable, you can just start spending the dice on screams. The mill decks, especially like the Saria sort of removal mill decks, like the deck is just doing the milling for you. You don't have to do anything. Whereas like the swing deck, it's like you have to be up on board and you have to be engineering a moment. And I think that's where I'm getting tripped up, is like figuring out how to engineer that moment. And like, I'm sure if I could figure out how to do this, I would probably achieve the next kind of leap in my Ashes playability, but I don't know how to get there.
Well, it takes away the crutches, right? Like I know when I first started building, and then even when I started building with Fred, when he was, I guess you could say, relatively new. Yeah,
thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, throw in Molten Gold. In like whatever color you're in. Throw in one of the burn sets, one of the burn sets of cards, just to have that reach. And I don't remember what it was, if it was someone who had told me or if it was when I was building with Shadow, and I was just like, I just want to stop this. Like, try and get to the core mechanics of Ashes, which is attacking, defending, and Phoenixborn guarding, because that's where the hard decisions and the measuring and like the forecasting come into play. And I think that's why Brian and Carl are so great, not only with that style of deck, but in general. They know when to trade, they know when to let something counter or not counter or die or step in front of it. And those decisions are really hard because they have so many knock-on effects. Whereas if you're playing a mill deck and it's like, okay, well, yeah, sure, I just guard with Finch or let it die and mill 2, it's advancing my win con, or yeah, sure, let this unit die and I final cry or scream, it's advancing my win condition. It's very different because you have something else to do. Whereas with swings, it's like, I need to decide whether this unit trades or dies or I step in front of it, and how that's going to affect next round or how that's going to affect their next play. And that's what I ultimately, with Schmoda Pro, I was trying to pull out of Carl's head because he's so good at it. And hopefully I will get in the right mindset to jump back into that series, because I think the last talk we had was a lot of really valuable insight. And I have since lost, I think, 5 competitive matches. So I should be able to give him enough. That was with two games I had won, and now I have 5 games I've lost. So hopefully he'll be able to analyze it and reveal some more good information for people. I think Ninja said the last episode was helpful for him, but yeah.
Well, it must something helped Ninja. The dude just walked into a tournament with Astria and wrecked it. Like, so I mean,
was that a monthly tournament?
Yeah, he won the knockout tournament with Astria.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
And that's a really cool. I don't think we've had an episode since that monthly tournament series started. So yeah, if you're not familiar, there's now a monthly tournament series running, which is a really nice way to just like get some competitive play. And at worst, you're only committing to 1 game.
Right.
If you lose your first match, you're out. So
I guess it depends. If the time commitment is the problem, at best you're committing to 1 game. At worst, you're committing to, right, I think 4 or 5.
True.
Well, one thing I will say, Smendrix, about your trade deck here is that, or your swing deck, I guess we should call it, is that Rin is not a good matchup for it. Number one.
No, it was a really bad matchup.
So like take some solace in that, right? If you're playing a deck that is trying to win the battlefield against a Phoenixborn that gets to, basically for free every round boost up his battlefield by 1 life, that's a tough proposition. So I think that's a thing you need to take away from it off the top. Not to mention now with Shattering Fist.
Transfusion.
No, I was going to say Shattering Fist. I mean that's a really, really strong battlefield control tool. To me, Rin is like close to Herald level of battlefield control nowadays. When you play with Shattering Fist and Adaptodon. And I mean, I could be saying that because Rin has been really the only Phoenixborn to beat me competitively in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But I've really struggled against him specifically. So I do think there's something to be said for that. But I think Treatment hit most of the stuff on the head with how to win. I'll tell you, I'm not going to be a ton of help here because I'm like you. I don't like to play those types of decks. I mean, there's a there's a reason I brought Hope Burn into the Worlds tournament. There's a reason I played Leo Supermill in the last monthly tournament. Like I don't like to play fair. Let's put it in competitive games, right? That's how I kind of look at it. I'm not good. Like I'm the Ashes villain, I guess. I'm not good at. I'm not good at winning the game the way you're supposed to win. That's like how I think about it. Whenever I get into a game where I'm just trading, I usually come out on the wrong end of that. And I've had too many games where I've just run into this wall of guys and I don't feel like I have a way to get through. And that could just be because it's how I build or whatever. But I'm like you, I need that crutch. And it is a crutch, right? Like that backup fallback plan, pressure point, secondary win con, plan B, whatever you want to call it. I really struggle to win without that. And it seems like the answer is, you engineer a top of round swing, right? But I mean, if it was that easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah, it's either that. I mean, I'm talking specifically with the stamina burst idea is like, I guess that would be the epitome of what you want to do, but you can just as easily chip away. in bursts of 2 and 3 and force them when possible. Like, if you can force a guard every round, obviously that's going to be slow, but if you can force that for a guard for 2 or 3, it basically gets you halfway there for most Phoenixborn. Like, against a Rin anyway, that's going to, that'll add up over 4 rounds to 8 damage if you can do it consistently.
Well, that was... So, yeah.
Right?
Totally. And that happened to be the biggest thing. To Killer's point about this matchup was that this Rin was running Gilder, and my only way to avoid the Gilder guards was Frostback Bear, and Rin hit all 3 Shattering Fists, all on Frostback Bears. So I basically didn't have a way of pressuring the guard, because there was always 1 to 2 Gilders up, and it was only the Frostback Bears that could avoid them. So I think you're right. I mean, I think that's the plan. Probably not to read too much into one bad matchup.
This brings up frustration. If you want to watch like just absolutely miserable, unfun game of 2 swing decks that have that just go at it. My last matchup versus Matt Bowers was Herald versus Rin. And we went to Fatigue, and 90% of it was like a stalemate of do nothing. It was awful. But that was like where I struggled. Same thing as I was on Herald, he was on Rin, and I didn't know what to do. And then like an idiot, I clogged myself too, which made it even harder because I couldn't get past and do anything. And he had Butterfly Monks to just heal forever. So that, it's all Matt's fault. That's why I've left the game. But there's probably learning lessons in that game. Very long game.
That is the other reason, by the way, that I don't like to play swing decks typically, is I'm afraid of that game. Like that's an NPE for me. When it's just the best thing to do is nothing. Nobody has a good attack. And it's this kind of stalemate until we fatigue type. I hate those games.
I've had 3 matches go to fatigue. Like, I've only played 5 matches in the last month and a bit, and 3 of them went to fatigue.
That's brutal.
I mean, I'm okay with the match going to fatigue if I'm trying to get it there, but...
No, I meant as a swing deck, that's what happened. Yeah, and losing because of sudden death rules is...
Yeah, that's rough.
I don't care, we're on pocket. It was bullshit.
Yeah.
Sudden death sucks. Yeah. Those rules should just be completely tossed out the window.
I hear you on that.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's, there's definitely, like Treatment said before, an art form to finding the right trades to make and when to do it. It's not, it seems sometimes as easy as attacking something that's not going to kill the thing you're attacking with. Like, that's step 1 to making a good trade, but there's so much more that goes into it than that. And Brian threw out a term the other day on the Discord that I kind of have latched onto in my head that we haven't talked about yet. He said, I never heard it before until he said it, and it resonated with me. He made a comment like, you have to be careful about summoning guard magnets. So he used this term guard magnet, right? Which he basically meant summoning a unit that is going to get attacked and force your Phoenixborn to guard for it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And that stuck with me. Because it's not necessarily the way I think. And that, is the way he thinks, and it's why, at least one of the reasons why he's so good at trading units, is he knows when an attack that he's going to make is going to put pressure on you to spend that guard or not. And being able to identify those situations, and not just identify them, but create them, is I think the key. Well, creating those situations is the key to it, but I could not tell you how to do that. But like that's finding ways to engineer a board state to force them to either summon something or make some kind of play where they can't protect this unit other than guarding with their Phoenixborn earlier than they want to is a big deal. That's what I'll say about it. I don't know how to tell you how to do that with your Lulu deck, but I like the term guard magnet, and just thinking about it that way kind of helps me.
Yeah, for sure.
When I'm, when I'm choosing to summon something or to attack something.
It's an interesting idea, and it's also sort of a bit random, but it also makes me think about why it is that cards like Old Salt, River Scald, on a spectrum from so strong it was banned in River Scald or chained to just on the right side of a chain in Old Salt to, I think conditionally strong but fairly overlooked in Adaptodon. I would actually include Adaptodon with those two because of its adaptation ability. But those cards that get removal value, or just any kind of value, but especially removal value because of how powerful removal is, on the turn they come into play, and then are not exhausted. So I'm differentiating them from like Enchanted Violinist or Rosefire Dancer, which are good but not quite the same.
Right.
Like, those cards are so great because in some ways you don't necessarily have to worry about guarding for them. Like, you could guard for them. There are certainly situations where you'd want to, but if you've got the right ping or exhaust, or with Scald, like straight up Night Explosion, they've gotten their value to some degree. And, if they trade evenly on the battlefield with a unit attacking into them, like, you just never guard with them. Like, you're plus value or guard for them. So anyway, it's just notable that there's this idea of guard magnets, and then these units in particular that have this feature of getting a lot of value the moment they land on the table. So in some ways, you don't have to guard for them so much. You don't need to keep them around to realize their value.
That's the old 2-for-1 term from TCGs, right? That we don't... Right. I remember Neil from Shufflebus used to say it all the time, and we would think like, well, those things don't port the same way into Ashes as they do into other games because of the way the resources work. But but this concept I think really does.
Right.
And it's kind of silly, and I think Carl's been saying it multiple times lately in the server. It's kind of silly how little River Scald is actually played. Because it's so, and I get it's chained, right? But that 2-for-1 potential is just so big.
That's crazy.
If you think about units, like you said, that have ETF abilities, especially if they're removal abilities, those are probably candidates of like, you should I don't want to say never, but like, you shouldn't guard. Like, so if Old Salt, if you play it and you remove another unit, I don't think there's a reason generally, like as a broad stroke, to guard it, because you're going to counter with it. It's already removed something. Right. Do you really want to sacrifice your guard and your life pool just to do something that's already gotten double value? No. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah. Exactly right. It is interesting to me. I'll just... one more aside, then we can move off this. I'll use this as a transition. I do think the fact that, treatment has evolved from jank player to serious student of the game. Killer is somehow a top 5 jank player. I don't know where I am exactly in this metamorphosis.
You surpassed me, bud.
That's just because you're not playing, but...
I'm losing when I play, so there you go.
I do think like this wanting to be an Ashes villain, I think is actually closely related to the appeal of jank. It's like, yeah, if I can just find this thing that my opponent can't answer, then all my problems will be solved and I won't have to worry about the complicated business of battlefield trading, which is part of what led me when I made the first, when I entered the Shuffle Bus tournament with the Realm Walker Hunting Weapons deck, to make that deck was like, because there is something deeply intimidating of being like, hey, this thing that you have to get really good at, which is, if you want to be really good at this game, which is battlefield trading, and in some ways pure battlefield trading, you have to do it in the face of Carl, Brian, Matt, these like established, incredibly good players at that thing. In that context, it's very appealing to try and figure out the kind of side door jank option. And that was, for me, that was Realm Walker hunting weapons. Clue has had a lot more success with it. And what's crazy about it is like, I feel like people are talk more about that deck now. I mean, it's not crazy. It's just, it has become a big part of the community, but often in like casual circles, like it's not winning tournaments, but like, and I have not run into it in a casual game until recently, and it wasn't even a full Realm of the Absurd deck because my opponent didn't protect the Realm Walker with Golden Veil, so I just like windmill slammed Sword of Virtue onto it as soon as it appeared. But I just, I haven't been running into it, but it's been getting a huge amount of conversation as a problem deck. And I'm curious, are you guys seeing it? Well, treatment, maybe not, especially if the only games you've been playing have been going to fatigue.
I did. I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
I mean, a quick side note, because you mentioned like that you were looking for like ways to play outside of what Ashes purports to be. And I think that it's interesting that the number of times Carl has said he's lost is generally, or the deck that he loses most frequently to, the archetype, is a burn deck, right? And that is one of, like, if you think about Ashes as swing and board and presence, and working outside of that being burn as a more successful, variant of, as opposed to mill, which hasn't quite gotten there, although Killer's done a bang up job with the turbo mill. I think
we're about to see when Blight drops.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really interesting. But no, right before I lost to Matt, the week before that, I lost to Kip in, I think, a 5-minute game. And it was a Realm of the Absurd game. And he played Echo, Realm of the Absurd, but it was interesting. I even expected it, and I had Guilt Link, and I thought I would be able to handle it. Just with other cards like Rising Horde, I had to put more stuff on the board. And he started with Huntmaster first, and then Realm Walker hunting weapons, and that really. So by turn 3, I played it. I first of all, I played a terrible first 5. I played it slow. I played it dumb. He swung for, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 the first time, because boosted with the Huntmaster, and then Chaos Gravity swung for another 8, I think, or 7, and I managed to get him down to top of 3. I clawed my way back and had him at 5 life, I think, and I had lethal swing. Or maybe it was 10, and I had lethal swing because I had a full board, but he had molten gold and he finished it, and it was very frustrating. It's very hard to take down if you're not prepared for it, and even if you are, there's enough tricks that can be like, it becomes mind games, I think, of like, is this person going to first 5 this? Like, do I first 5 Golden Veil because I think they have removal, or they're not in color for removal, so what are they going to do instead? It's irritating. And it's interesting to see how many different shells, like, Clue really took the idea. I think he played like almost every Phoenixborn with it. Like, and his favorites are not the ones I would have expected. Echo seems like an obvious choice, but his favorite was what? It was Odette. Yeah, but his second favorite was something I forget now what he said. Astria, and I wasn't expecting that. I mean, it seems like sort of obvious, but it's interesting that it's the smaller fields too that worked in the higher life. So it's very flexible, and it is, if you're a new player, I think it is NPE, but at the competitive level, I'm wondering why no one's done it. Like the all-out version, because I mean, just having Realm Walker plus hunting weapons in the deck that you could play round 2 or 3, that's not really what the deck is about. It's about playing that round 1, try and punish you for half your life total.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've not run into it a lot. I feel like there was a game somewhere in the last couple months, either not in collection, but either in the knockout tournament that I was playing Leo Mill, or Phoenix League where I was playing Leo Mill, because I just played nothing but Leo Mill for a long time. I feel like I ran into it at least once, or some version.
That's it?
Yeah, not a lot. And I don't think it was really an all-out thing either. I remember winning the game, but I don't remember how. I remember sitting down across from an Echo deck that had Time and Illusion and thinking, oh crap, like this is bad for me. But I think I was just able to play enough guys out that, and it's, that deck makes it difficult because you don't want to ping away the little guys because it mills you for it. And I had generosities and redirects and stuff to kind of keep me around. But I've just not had a ton of experience against it. I remember the one time I ran into it when we were playing the Saria deck in that pod tournament forever ago when we all played it. And I had Shadow Guard.
I told us to include it specifically for, like, just a one of for that possibility.
Yeah. And I first 5'd it and used it and killed the Realm Walker. And just basically won right there. So that's, that doesn't work when they root armor the Realm Walker, but this person didn't. They did the hunting weapons thing, and the Shadow Guard just killed it.
You still trade in 2 to 4 though, right? You've got them down 2 damage. You've traded 2 dice for 4. They still have to then refresh it for 5. That gives you an opening.
Yeah, I mean you save 4 life too.
Yeah.
Which it's not nothing. It just doesn't automatically kill the Realm Walker. Like it does when they have 3, or when they don't have root armor. But I don't know. It's an interesting question to me in Ashes, whether these round 1 rushy type decks that are enabled by one big unit should exist or not. Part of me understands the NPE that can come of it if you don't first 5 correctly and are surprised by a big Realm Walker or a big Archosaurus or a big Hydra pre-chain or a big Dread Wraith or whatever it is. To me, all these decks are the same. I know that Realm Walker is not really, to me, it's not really thought of in the same breath as those other things. Like, people don't talk about the Realm of the Absurd deck like they would talk about Carl's infuriating Dread Wraith deck. But when I think about it, it's one big unit doing a bunch of damage that's unblockable in the first round. And should that be allowed to exist or not? And I get the NPE stuff, but I also, again, I'm the villain in Ashes, right? I don't want to play fair, and that's an exciting thing to me. Like, to have that type of deck in the game excites me a bit. I like those interesting kind of surprise got you moments. So I don't know. I mean, they're talking about a Golden Veil chain, and I do think a Golden Veil chain would eliminate a lot of this, despite the fact that we've been telling people to wolf down and play removal forever now. I feel like, even though I say that and I don't do it myself, but I do think that taking away Golden Veil to protect that big unit you have from hard removal is going to put a damper on playing these types of decks. I think it's going to make trade decks a lot better, because I think these unit trade decks that want to start slow and establish an engine and then out trade the opponent with efficient units suffer against these, early quick rush down type things. And like I said, I don't like playing trade versus trade, so that scares me a little bit about the game. If the meta devolves into that, I hope it won't. It probably won't, but I just get, back of my mind is like, I just hope everyone's not playing Herald Pact versus Herald Pact and the game gets boring. But at the same time, I mean, I get that if someone drops a Realm Walker and puts honey weapons on it and you're not ready to deal with that, you might have just lost the game before it started. And I don't know that, regardless of how much of a villain I want to be in this game, that's fun for anybody. So I'm very on the fence about the whole thing. I do think there are ways to beat Realm Walker. It's not as bad as like the Hydra explosive growth, or massive growth rather, stuff that used to exist pre-chains. But I mean, if everyone just played Ash Spirit and Call to Action, then there wouldn't be a problem, and we just
is that too much to ask? Come on,
right?
guys.
Dude, Ash Spirit is like the 2023 MVP for me. I love this card right now.
Okay, but how much worse would Ash Spirit be if anyone had bothered to read Ash Spirit? Because I feel like half your success with Ash Spirit is people haven't read the card and they haven't read the focus effect on the book.
Yeah, I think it's the focus effect that people just never bother with, and they're like, I didn't even know that you did focus the book. Wait, there's a focus effect? And then it's like, oh.
I will say... Yeah, I will say that I had multiple games in which I played a focused Ash Spirit, forced the opponent to discard a card that they were not expecting to have to discard, and that threw them for a loop. And I also had multiple games in which I had people pass at the end of a round expecting to start the next round, and then all of a sudden they're dead, and they're like, wait, why did I lose? And I'm like, Ash Spirit just burned you for 3, and they're like, oh, that does that? And like, yeah, like, so I did have that, but that thing just does so much in that Turbo Mill deck. It does so many different things. But one thing it also does is, if when paired with a Call to Action, it beats Realm of the Absurd. So I'm just throwing that out there.
And you're just trading 3 dice for 3 dice. There you go.
Well, you're trading 3 dice for 4 dice, probably.
No, 3. Well, that's true. 3 dice for 4 dice.
3 with the book tax.
Yeah, the book tax.
Yeah.
That's
and
another thing.
They're playing an alteration on that Realm Walker, though. You're up a die if they hunting weapons it.
I bet you could ask.
Yeah, you're definitely up.
You could poll people and be like, okay, outside the fact that Ash Spirit is a 0 attack unit, and whatever, like, it destroys the unit that destroys it on attack, name like any other attribute of Ash Spirit. Most people will not know anything. They won't know it has a focus effect. They won't know it does end of round or start of round damage. They won't know that it has... Actually, I'm not even sure. Does it have 2 life? I think it does, right? It's not 1 life.
2 life. 2 life.
And does it have recover? Is Nick a sadist? No. Okay, good.
It forces both players to draw a card when it's played as well.
That's true. Yeah, both players draw. Conjure.
That people, I'm sure, have noticed because it happens every time.
Yeah. Now it does, but I'm very impressed with the deck that you have. I think it's awesome, and I keep saying you need to play it seriously.
Well, it started as your idea, and
you need to play it like when I say seriously,
he's been playing it.
I know,
and he took it to Knockout Arena, and now I'm saying, like, take it, like, bring it to the big leagues, bring it to the next Open or whatever.
All right, let's come. We can talk about what from Blight to add to that.
Yeah.
Treatment. You said you had a bunch of thoughts about
Flight or realm. Yeah. So, okay. I think it comes down to a few things. It comes down to, one, what is the expectation? Like, when people are having the discussion, what is the expectation they have of Ashes at a high level? Like, what do they expect once all of the cards are down the meta to be and what is a valid strategy to win. And those kind of all-in plans, in my opinion, should be part of the game. It's just that they have to be appropriately balanced, and they have to be balanced because they're all in. They have to effectively be a glass cannon. So it can be a gotcha, and you know that's part of the game. But if it's also like virtually impossible to deal with it, especially round one, if it's the type of deck that can kill you round one or top round two, that's where it becomes a problem. And I originally was against the idea of Golden Veil chain, like just it seemed like a ridiculous idea, but I do think it provides probably that balance where it makes it so like if you want to run Archie Smash or Hydra, like I think Carl said, you could take everything else off the list more or less if you just chain Golden Veil. I think that's a really interesting proposition because you could then try and run all these things and it becomes a gotcha. But at the same time, do you want, like, what do you want Ashes to be? Do you want it to be a rock, paper, scissors gamble of I ran into this deck and I just either, didn't have the answer right, or I didn't think of them running the gotcha deck because they're so rare. And you don't want those decks to become consistent in the meta, because if they're always around, then that probably indicates that there's an issue. Like if you ran a tournament and 19 out of 30 decks are some sort of one big unit, try and win round one, that's probably an issue indicating some sort of overpowerness or whatever. So I think it's an interesting fine balance. I'm okay with Realm of the Absurd. It definitely can suck to lose. But maybe Golden Veil chain is the answer, because I haven't found it to be a problem against decks that don't pack Charm. Like, I think then you can either try and anticipate it or deal with it. I think your deck that you gave me, or that you made for Halloween, the Trick or Treat, effectively had a Realm of the Absurd open. And
yeah, you had the option.
Yeah, but it had no Charm. So it could be dealt with, but it also once or twice had the gotcha moment that worked. And right. I think that can be okay. It just depends what you want Ashes to be. If you want it to always be more of the like level playing fields that you can always anticipate round one. So I don't know. But like Archie Smash is the same. I've been gotten by that by Under Rug Swept. And it can suck just as much, but in a different way. Because for like outside of double removal, really, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, look, I think we've probably explored this to death via conversations on the server, and I think we've probably talked about this before, but I do think these points are important. I think Nick's been pretty clear that in the choices in the chain list, he doesn't want the game to become too RPS. I stand by the fact that, like, I do think there is a high degree of psychology involved in losing effectively round one to Realm Walker hunting weapons versus probably knowing you're going to lose round 4 to like the right 4 books plus Aradel or whatever. Like,
right.
It's it just takes longer. Now, the fact that it takes longer, that's the game. So like, yeah, you get to enjoy more of the game, but like at the same time, I don't think the outcome is in any more doubt in those two situations. In truth, there's more room for variance, I guess, because there are more cards drawn over more rounds. But the fact that the right and book-driven engines exist means that a lot of that variance can't change the outcome in a meaningful way. So, but yeah, so psychology matters because what we're fundamentally talking about is fun. I think the one thing that makes me sad about going to a chain to deal with Realm of the Absurd is like, I understand why it's necessary, and I think if we really truly had a bunch of local metas all around the country, I think it would increase the urgency rather than basically a single meta online. But there are cards in the card pool, deeper ones than the ones we've talked about, that I think the pressure of Realm of the Absurd force into the conversation. And I feel like and otherwise those cards might stay on the sidelines or not be as explored. So like we already talked about Ash Spirit. That's definitely an underplayed card. That's an interesting combination with Call to Action. There's Shadow Guard, very underplayed. And we we had one of my favorite moments on the podcast when we talked about Reflections in the Water, which again is still, if you want to find a cheap, easily splashable like second removal or pseudo removal option that you could put in your first 5, or include with Forager, that's definitely one, and it's got utility just beyond Realm of the Absurd, because you can generally find a place where it might get you a little bit of marginal value elsewhere. And I think
and Wolf, like we've talked about it, but like,
yeah, Wolf in general.
And I wonder, is that because like a lot of these answers are in Charm or Illusion or Time, and thus far those are also the ones that, well, I mean, Charm's coming out, but those are the ones that are both underplayed as a whole and do not have the mono support yet. So is it that they're not being utilized because people aren't going deep enough into those pools? Like Shadow Guard takes 2 class illusions, and most people aren't really diving into illusion enough to support that type of start.
Yeah, I agree.
There are also the colors that play Realm of the Absurd, by the way.
Yeah, every color has its counter type of thing, yeah.
I am really going to struggle to find a reason not to play Odette in a world with no Golden Veil, or a Golden Veil chain, I guess. Not no Golden Veil, but like, I mean, Sword was already absurd as a card in the first 5, even in Golden Veil, because you could always use it as a refresh instead. So maybe this doesn't really affect it on the margin. But like, if I get just complete unfettered access to remove the most annoying unit on my opponent's battlefield, so powerful. Not to mention then, I guess the only reasons I wouldn't play Odette is because I instead want to play like Tristan or Echo or any of the other PBs that have these really just blowout cards.
Jessa would be really
Jessa
great again.
With Fear. Yeah. The Golden Veil is in some ways the only thing that's kind of, I don't know, not constraining. We just don't see that much Golden Veil, to be totally honest with you, outside of these all-in decks. But
well, here's
so maybe it's just not a non-issue.
Here are 2 more thoughts. So first, because you were talking about, or we were sort of covering, I guess, the RPS-ish nature, but do either of you guys watch or ever have watched professional StarCraft?
No.
Or do you at least know the game? No, you don't know the game? Okay.
I know StarCraft, yeah.
So in the game, high level play, you're talking about the psychology of it, and especially in matches, there's 3 player, like you can play 3 different teams, I'll call them, for anyone who's just not into the game. There's Zerg, Protoss, and Terran. Zerg are like the swarmy type
humans,
of thing.
elves, and orcs / bugs.
And so they have the ability to do some crazy like rush strats. And so it eventually becomes the talk of like, oh, are you going to get cheesed? Like, is the person going to run a cheesy strat where it's all in and they try and, play one of their expansion bases right next to yours and try and win just by spamming out really quickly early units that are generally weak, but if they're close enough and massed enough in the first 5 minutes of the game, you win. But if they don't win in those first few minutes, or you suspect it and you counter them properly, then they effectively lose. Like most of the time, these games, the person playing this cheesy strat, if they don't get their start, the ideal start that's supposed to win, they just concede like a few minutes into the game if it didn't take off. And that's the type of mind games where, like, if you play one of these things like Realm of the Absurd and then your Realm Walker dies, you probably don't have a plan B or enough of a way to claw back in. But and so maybe that is the type of game that people want, or maybe it's the type of game that Nick doesn't want, which is fine, all things considered. But I think it's valuable, and I think it's a valid way that like allows people to play different styles. Another part of the issue, aside from Golden Veil, though, I think is just the vast disparity in Phoenix-born life totals, which makes these types of strategies so unbalanced. Like if you're, Pheno as it is, I've seen discussion today. Brian was just saying like he would rather play Vicky basically just for the extra life because he thinks the 15 life is such a handicap. And it's very interesting because if there was a shuffling or rebalancing of health totals, I wonder how often these gotcha decks would come up in discussion. Like, let's just say, even for simplicity's sake, if everyone was at 20 life, would these 1 or 2 swing round 1 decks be as effective as if, the majority or the most popular Phoenix-born of the day is one that's sitting at 16 life? Right? Or would it be as effective if heal wasn't, Phoenix Attendant and whatever else wasn't as popular as it is today? I think that conversation becomes different, and it's because the Phoenix-born are not balanced as a whole, especially in respect to these types of strategies.
Yeah, I would love. We just printed a whole bunch of new tokens, but like, I think it would be very cool to normalize for all sorts of different purposes, for handicapping more experienced players playing less experienced players, to effectively create mini chains on the Phoenix-born based on tournament results, like health modifier tokens to say like, look, for the next tournament, Harold's going in with a -1 health modifier. He won the last tournament. Like, we're going to see how that goes. And like, if he, no one plays him, falls out, we'll reassess. But like, I think, I feel like we should be, I would love to see, I guess I almost always come down on the side of like more aggressively adjusting things on the fly to try and improve the meta. But like, that feels like such an easy, you don't even have to reprint the cards, just normalize the idea that to balance competitive play on an ongoing basis, we're not just going to chain cards, but we're going to modify PB health totals. Like, just
print the tokens with whatever set comes after charm.
Exactly.
Print a +1, +2, +3, like
-1, -2,
-1, -2, -3. Print 2 sets of them, and that covers your life total and you could do it for all 3 stats. You could do it for battlefield and for hand size.
Yeah, it's probably hard to figure out how to do that.
At least do it at least do it for health, and then see where that goes.
I think you could even print,
because as it is, I think there are problems, and I don't know that even after you buff Vicky, Fiona, whatever, that they're still all going to be on a fair level.
And it's dynamic. Like,
yeah,
I don't think you could say, given how much we're changing PBs. Just with the alternate signatures in some cases, like Rin got a big boost. Like, what's Rin at? I think he's 16 health, or
17.
Is he 17? 16. Yeah, it's probably fine for where he's at, honestly. But like,
Rin is 17 health.
I'm trying to think of what would a PB be that whose new signature could justify like some kind of health adjustment. I don't know that we've got one yet. But I would have much rather seen like Brennan right now. We were just having a conversation. Might be a little under.
Brennan got 2 hit.
Yeah, a little undertuned, and like that's such an easier change to make to say in tournaments going forward. Like, instead of the -3 health modifier on Brennan, we're going to go to -2
for sure. I've seen that argument. Well, I think Killer came up with that a while back. I remember Carl talking about a living document that's like that Plaid Hat just prints, like, even if you don't want to do tokens, if you just want to be quote unquote lazy about it and be like, hey, we're going to print a living document that says here's the stats, right? And you can, it really comes down to, if you're talking about organized play anyway, and you don't care about kitchen table, then fine, then nobody has to follow it if they don't want to. They don't have to follow chain list right now, but we basically do, and the only way to find the chain list is to go to the document. So just print adjustments.
I think we've done it. I think we've done Realm of the Absurd.
Oh, I was wrong. Rin is 17. Knock him down. He's too
Rin
good.
is 17.
Yeah, Rin is 17. I was trying to talk, but my microphone was bad or
You
something.
keep dropping out. It wouldn't be an episode without
I'm like,
you.
Rin is 17, guys. He's 17. And like, no one's listening. And then
Yeah, it's Harold that's 16. Yeah.
I think you could even print like the life total things, like the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Like little circles, and just stick one of those, right? Like on top of he's like, because we're not going to go below 15 and we're not going to go above 20. So at least I don't think.
Right.
So like, that's just 3 pieces of cardboard because you can flip them over. Just stick it on there. I don't know.
That's a good idea. Well, we've gone for over an hour. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about, or should we?
We always go longer. What are you talking? You're too efficient this time. We can't come back from Christmas and it's just like, yeah, cut it. I don't know. I think no. I feel strongly about like adjusting the stats. I think it needs to be done, whether it's now or whether it's at the end before the hang up.
We promised listeners a preview of what kind of new tortures Killer's going to add to his Leo Turbo Mill deck that runs Ash Spirit, Abundance, Orchid Dove, Ryle, Flock Shepherd.
I mean, you got to run Farewell. If that's, I would say that's probably the only change you need.
Farewell needs to go in. I need to figure out how to deal with Rin.
Why is Rin a problem specifically?
Because he always plays Adaptodon, which is the real problem, right? Because it can exhaust Glowfinch very easily, and it takes away a lot of my mill. Plus, Shattering Fist does 2 things, right? Number one, it just wipes a Flop Shepherd or a Beast Tamer off the board in the first round and leaves me down on dice. And also, it gives the Adaptodon another use of Ice Adaptation to exhaust an Orchid Dove or an Ash Spirit or literally any unit I play that's not a Beast Tamer. And then he typically plays Clashing Tempers as well, which is a horrible card against me. So that's really the main issues. I mean, Fred was doing some other things like buffing up Ruin Dwellers.
Oh, he was playing that deck. Yeah. Yeah,
and things that that burn me, right, and that put me on a bit more of a clock. So it was just kind of a mess of things that are really efficient against me. But I need Golden Veil, right? That's the other change that the deck needs. I don't have it right now, and Golden Veil would solve a lot of those problems. So I probably take the Anguishes out in favor of Golden Veil, or at least potentially one Golden Veil and one Call to Action, because I've been a little bit worried about the Realm of the Absurd decks too, and Call to Action would fix that problem because I already have Ash Spirit. Plus, it's good. I'm running Neil now, so Call to Action is good with Neil.
Neil also fixes Realm of the Absurd.
Yeah, it delays it.
Or at least one swing.
Yeah, it helps a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, it fixes round 1, right? And then you kind of set up.
Yeah, it helps a little bit. But yeah, it's Farewell goes in for sure, and then Golden Veil goes in as well. And that's probably it. I'm not going to add any of the Charm Dice, like, manipulating stuff to it.
No, that doesn't.
Would you do Embrace?
I don't think so. It's an interesting...
Don't you remember Killer hates that card?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because it's certainly always going to work in my favor because I'm not doing any damage. But I just think I think it's too often it's just a heal 1 card, and I would if I'm gonna play a healing card, I'm gonna heal 2, not 1, with that healing card, I think. Plus, I'm not sure I have too much more room for any more healing cards in the list as it is. But that probably would be the next one to go in from the set. There's not a ton that really helps a prison deck like this. It's more about it's all battlefield stuff, right? It's just, Nick fighting the good fight and not giving the villains the cards they need to play unfairly.
Well, Astria's not going to care. Like, I think you're going to see an uptick in Astria, and then Realm of the Absurd is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I did want to say on Realm of the Absurd. You try to get out, but you draw me back in. Is like, who knows if a Golden Veil chain is coming. I hope we just wait until we see what happens with, like, Astria coming in. Like, I don't know. I think that Destroy All Units card...
Judgment's a scary card, man.
Yeah.
It's a scary card. And, like, it seems like Ninja Dance Mat just proved that Astria actually can be good. And that's something I've been suspicious about for a long time, because her ability is very, very good. Like, I know her stats are bad, but, like, 4 Battlefield isn't good, but it's not insurmountable. And Odette does just fine with 5, and, like, 5 is not that bad.
And Jessa does with 4.
And like, Astria's ability is very good. And I felt like the only thing holding her back was a very, like, mediocre, unique card in the ability to manage 4 Battlefield. And this card that she gets is a very good card, and it helps mitigate that Battlefield problem that she has. Like, she's going to be really good now, potentially, if people can figure out how to use Judgment correctly.
I think it's going to be interesting.
Gates is my Judgment answer. That's the thing I want to figure out. Gates opens with 4 books. It's really...
Just go to all Burn. Bring Burn back. I just need to figure out...
Burn's already back, man. Burn is here.
That's true. I lost to Burn as well, incidentally. Brankus in the first knockout arena. That was how I started my journey. But I just need to figure out, like, 20 to 25 cards that will make Astria decent, and then let Fred polish it off, and he can go test my ideas and tell me whether they work or not. That kid has been a fun partner to build with.
Yeah, he's like the bane of my existence right now.
All the decks every time I watch a game, you versus him, and then he reports back, and then you report back in like the 2 different chats, and you're just like, man, I friggin' hate that he just beat me with this crap. And then Fred's like, so I think this deck has legs. I'm now like 7-0 with it, and I just beat Casey. And it's like, okay, good. I'm getting both sides.
I've never beaten him. I've played him a lot.
At all?
Never. Yeah, I'm 0 for life against Fred.
I've beaten him once that I can remember.
He's only beaten me once, which I don't understand. We've played a few times.
Wow.
But to be fair, the first few times he lost against me was when I was playing Turbo Mill, and he still wasn't used to... He was new to the game, and he was only really, really good at every other strategy other than facing Turbo Mill, so...
Well, he just beat that twice.
Yeah, well, because see, I gave him the practice.
For a short period of time.
I gave him the practice early on, so now he knows. Adaptodon came out since then, too, which kind of screws over Turbo Mill. So.
Yeah, it's rough for it, but I just got to put in Golden Veil and use it against that Adaptodon and Clashing Tempers garbage. Shattering Fist.
Splash for Trap.
Yeah.
Splash for Ice Trap.
I can't splash anymore, but Golden Veil will do the job.
All right, we did it, gang. We're back. 2024. Blight of Neverset. It's all happening.
Yeah. Get your shimmer wings out, baby.
Do the shimmy.
And build some janky stuff. Jericho Shimmer Wing for the win. Let's do it.
Should we make it Jankuary? It doesn't seem like Jankfest is going to happen, but should we just make a whole month?
I'm in for it. Man, I'm here for it, but I mean, I am going to start working 75-hour weeks pretty soon, but
taxes. That
doesn't mean I'm not here for it. Yeah, I'm still here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm good for whatever. I'm good to just you guys keep sending me ideas separately or whatever, and I'll just give my stamp of approval.
You've just become the oracle.
Yeah.
It's like treatment used to play, but now we just send him things and he blesses them.
I bless the deck. Yes, this is good. No, this needs a few changes.
You have to start making your advice more inscrutable. Be like, when I send you a deck, I want like a haiku that like I can't understand. just have to ponder it for a while.
No, you need to come back. It's a lot of the scheduling crap was our fault and not your fault. So I apologize if I contributed to your frustration in any way. But if we get past that part, then we get to the Ashes like frustration part. We could beat that stuff. Get you back in here.
It's so stupid. Like, honestly, this last month or whatever, or in general this past year, like, I'm at the best part of my life I've ever been, so I shouldn't be complaining over a game and a few other minor quibbles.
Yeah, it's not stupid. Trust, it's just not stupid. There's lots of reasons why it's okay to be frustrated and fed up with crap. To be able to come back from. I had one of the best things that could have possibly happened to me in my life, in career-wise, happened to me over the last couple of years, and all I did was complain about it. Like, it's just a thing that you got to be able to get past and deal with. But take the time, which you did, which is cool, and we're ready to. You're the only one that can beat Fred, apparently, so we need you to come back and do that.
Yeah, if the Ashes meta is just the players, then like your treatment's the meta call right now. Fred is like terrorizing everyone. Save us.
Just can't. He loses to treatment and Astria.
Man, if I start playing Astria,
yeah, with your Astria deck, you'll be unstoppable.
I'll take it all over.
Your ass treatment deck.
Ass treatment.
Now you know I have to build. As soon as Blight comes like into tech, I gotta play something like that.
Must be done. You have no choice.
Yeah. Ninja will be happy. He'll be proud.
Alfred will be happy too, or maybe he won't. I'm not sure.
He might be. It might make him angrier if I succeed with Astria.
He's on the Fiona track now. He's on the Fiona train.
I mean, he kept asking me if he should give up on Astria, and I was like, well, at least until Blight comes out. Just keep asking me. I'm like, yeah, put it away. Stop doing it. It's about to get so much better. He shouldn't be angry. That's my point. All right. Who's signing us off? We got to wrap this thing up.
Do we have anything new? Are we still just, you're not janky, it's stanky, wolf down, frog up?
Snake out. Yeah.
Snake out. Yeah, that's true. Blight's here. Snake out, everyone.
Have a good night.
All right, guys. Peace.